difference, one cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference, one cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome to Tea Time. We are back. It is the last tea time of the evening. And I am really sorry for that high whine. I did not realize that it was there. I will fix that. So, for all the listeners out there, please forgive me for that high whine in your ears. But just a little bit more, please share these tea times. We do make a difference when we share the tea times. So before we get started, we're going to do the disclaimer, then we're going to do a bio intro, and then I'm going to get Wendy to jump in here, and we're going to serve some really strong tea tonight. And we're going to learn all about her incredible books that she has and all of the good stuff. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Times live show. Miss Liz and myself is going live using StreamYard. Please leave before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith, however, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participation are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk, and it is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelists' discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show, in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. Should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect that, and we'll see you at a later show at a later date and time. Now, let me introduce the incredible guests that I have sitting in the studio. And I just want to have some time to sit and resonate on a good cup of strong tea tonight, because we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about her book series, native rights articles, magazines, author, publisher, researcher. We're going to get into all of it tonight. So grab your teas, grab your coffee, grab a glass of wine. You don't have to be drinking tea to listen to Tea Time. So Wendy Hawkins writes edgy urban fantasies with a twist of murder from her loaf near Vancouver, BC, Canada. Her novels, To Charm a Killer, To Sleep with Stones, To Render a Raven, and To Kill a King, each stands alone, but from the Hollystone Mysteries series. This coven of West Coast witches and their erratic, I'm not saying that word right, I'll get her to say it, friends solve murders using ritual magic and little help from the gods. Although she's an introvert, in each book her characters go on a journey where Hawkins travels herself. She researches all her locals, Ireland, Scotland, the BC coast, to soak up the sensory landscape. In 2017, she climbed Croghan Croghan Hill in Ireland to survey the land her king would rule to kill a king. A romantic time travel thriller set in Iron Age Ireland. To find out more about Wendy's bio, you can check out Miss Liz's Facebook page, LinkedIn, and all the those good pages. So let's get Wendy in there, and let me get a sip of tea because my tongue is just a twisting right now. So welcome, Wendy. My
Thank
tongue, I
you.
don't know what is going on, but oh my goodness, it's like tongue twisters tonight.
Thank you for that great introduction. That was lovely. Yeah.
So a little bit about you, Wendy.
hmm
Let's get into who is Wendy and how did Wendy start writing?
I gave you that word complex as to describe me, and I was thinking why I did that, and the reason is because I'm still trying to figure out who Wendy is and what I'm doing here on this planet at this time, and if I'm even supposed to be here, if it was a mistake, and what my whole life is about. So there's a lot going on there. I think you asked me why I started writing.
Mm-hmm. What
Uh,
got you into writing?
yeah, I started writing when I was a kid, obviously, with the angsty teenage poetry that a lot of us hit on to survive being a teenager, and then I wrote some songs because I had some music, and I didn't start writing novels till later, and I really wrote the first novel to see if I could, and yeah, just kind of continued on with writing novels. I find I can't write a short story; it's like too limited, and yeah, so
So
that's
you want to share a little bit about the series that's behind you because the covers are incredible.
Yeah, thank you. I can talk about the covers. First of all, is that these are all tattoos worn by the.
Oh,
Yeah, they're all tattoos worn by my characters, and kind of what happened is I thought it was going to be a what do you call it, trilogy, and then I wrote the fourth book, and I realized the trilogy covers wouldn't work anymore, and I needed to expand. And so I was doing a mediumship course at the time with a lovely woman named Yasmin, and I knew that she was a graphic artist. So after our course, I said, have you ever done book covers? She said no, but I'm I'm willing to try it. So we had a few meetings, and we hit on this idea that we wanted something that was really simple and but that would stand out. And we got talking about the tattoos, and I said, they all have tattoos. And so what I ended up doing was sending her a quote from each book that describes it and said, can you draw it based on these words? And she did these amazing sketches, and that's what happened is we ended up with these tattoos. So I really love these covers. I
yeah,
really
I would have never ever thought of tattoos as a book cover. Like when
Yeah.
I looked at the images, when you sent me the images, I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." But now, as you're saying it with tattoos, I've actually been looking at this ink tattoo thing where it's not like real tattoos because I'm too chicken to get a tattoo.
Yeah,
So
I know what you
it's
mean.
so these tattoos last like 2 weeks or something, but they really look real, right? So that's as close as I'm getting to getting a tattoo.
I totally can go with you in that. I mean, if my dog touches me, I bleed. So I just have that skin that is not. Maybe if I'd have done it like 40 years ago, it might have been okay, but definitely not right now. I don't want
Right?
to. I don't want to like go there. So yeah, but yeah. So the first one, a young 17-year-old girl gets the Celtic horse tattoo on her arm when she gets into Wicca with this coven. And the second one, the angel's wings, the black angel's wings, are my main character's back, and yeah, his first love did those for him. And the third one is also his, and that's the ravens. This is getting into the books a little bit, but the ravens in To Render a Raven are actually vampires. And
Oh,
yes, so um, so this he had to blow those ravens to pieces, and that coven or that tattoo is there to remind him of how close he came to losing, well, he did lose somebody he loved, but to also losing his child. And so it's pretty dramatic. The last one is on the back of my archaeologist, the tattoo fairy butterfly. Yeah. And they all have stories. So the tattoos really filter into the story, and are meaningful to the story. So the interesting piece is that now I'm writing book 5, and I'm almost finished the first draft. I mean, I've hit close to 70,000 words, and my books are usually around 90,000 words. So I'm in the last part of Act 3, and I don't know who the tattoo is going to be at. I know who's getting it, but I don't know what he's getting. So it'll be interesting. And then I'll have to call Yasmin, of course, and say, we need to do another tattoo. So, yeah.
So you were saying that the Raven was a vampire. So do each of the books have like a different, like Wiccan, like a witch, like the vampire,
Right.
the werewolf?
No. So no, it's basically a coven of witches.
Okay.
And Estrada, who is my main character, is the high priest. He's also a very free-spirited bisexual Gothic magician in a Gothic nightclub in Vancouver. So he gets into a lot of trouble throughout the books, and the stories follow him, and where he goes to help basically save his family and friends from whatever is going on. So the story is a long arc following him and his relationships, and because it's urban fantasy, they tend to be more character development than they are like plot driven. Although I will say the first one, To Charm a Killer, is a murder mystery. So there is a serial killer that's killing witches, abducting them in Vancouver, and the Wicca Coven spins a charm to catch the killer, which is a really bad idea because you never should do that. Charms go crazy and filter out all kinds of ripples. So anyway, he ends up having to chase this guy down in Ireland, and there he runs into fairies, who he's always wanted to meet, Irish fairies. So there are fairies, there are gods, because he has developed somewhat a relationship with the Celtic horned god Cernunnos, who is in this story quite often. The vampires came about because Michael Stryker, who is the manager of the goth club where Estrada works, is also his lover. And Michael is quite eccentric, and he thinks he is the reincarnation of Lord Byron, and he also likes to play fake vampire. So he walks around the club, it's a lot of cosplay, and it's a very sexy club. And he walks around wearing his cape and his fake fangs and his red contacts or whatever he's into, pretending he's a vampire. Well, in the second book, when Estrada goes to Scotland to free a friend of his who's been accused of murder and to solve that crime, a real vampire takes an interest, and he ends up in trouble with this vampire. And in the third book, the vampire takes his revenge. So that's
See, and book 5 is coming, so you just never know what's coming with book 5, right?
Well, I could just take that a little bit further, a couple more steps. And so in book 4, which is To Kill a King, they actually time travel with the Celtic horned god back to Iron Age Ireland. And that one features Estrada and the archaeologist from book 2. So Saoirse, she goes back to save this guy who's actually a bog body, like a real life bog body. That's why I went to Ireland to climb Croghan Hill, because I wanted to go there. But when he comes back at the end of book 5, or at the end of book 4, Cernunnos does him a favor by bringing him in a little bit earlier than when he left. So he realizes when he comes back into modern Ireland that book 3 hasn't happened yet. So all of the tragedies that happen with these vampires, he has the knowledge, but they haven't happened. So he says, wow, I now have an opportunity for an epic do-over. I can go in there. I know where they live. I know how to kill them. I'm going to go and kill all these vampires before anybody gets hurt. That's a really nice idea, Estrada.
And have you ever thought of doing anything with werewolves, Wendy? Or
I have not gone into werewolf territory. No, I haven't.
is there a difference between the vampires and the werewolves? Like, are they
Oh
from the
yeah.
same time zone, or are they like same period, or was the vampires before the werewolves, or were they at the
I don't
same
know. I
time?
mean, they're all mythic creatures, right? So it just
Yeah.
depends, I think, who people identify with. And for me, I mean, I got into the vampires only because of Michael. It wasn't that I didn't just say, oh, I'm going to write a book about vampires. I don't actually ever sit down and say, I'm going to write a book about this.
Okay.
I just follow what they're doing. They tell me what they're doing, and I tell their story. Yeah.
So how long does it take you to write a book, Wendy?
You know what? It depends. I mean, when I started this, I was full-time teaching English in a high school. Okay. Yeah, and going a little bit crazy. Because I'm such an introvert, and that's not a good place for introverts, you know, with 1,200, 1,500 people in a day.
Yeah.
That really saps you. So I was coming home and I was writing weekends and holidays. And so the first book took me quite a while. And then they got a little bit faster as I started, you know, getting to know the characters. This one that I'm writing, book 5, has been the fastest yet, because I really just started it in November. And like I said, I'm almost done.
Wow.
Yeah. And it really sort of came on fast and furious. And it's tentatively called To Right a Wrong, because
Oh,
as I said, he's going to go back and try and fix the tragedy of what happened in Surrender Raven. The thing is that he's playing with fate. And, you know, fate is fate because it's fate.
yeah.
And can you change fate is a big question here. And you know, all through when they were in Iron Age Ireland, the god kept saying, do not change history. You cannot, if you change history, everything's going to be messed up. Well, they changed history, and now they're finding that things are messed up. So really, everything that he's doing into right or wrong is going wrong. So
Right.
it's interesting how it's evolving. And honestly, at this point, because it's all just coming from them from me, I don't know what's going to happen.
So Wendy, you said you went to Ireland to
Yeah,
climb the hill. How
yeah.
was that experience for you?
Um, the hill climbing was really fun. I mean, it's a cow pasture, and
Oh,
it's 768 feet. So it's not like I live in BC, right? We have big hills.
yeah.
You know, we have mountains. Ireland has mountains in Wicklow, which is fairly close to there, but Croghan Hill is a volcano that is underneath this hill, and then it's grass covered. And
Okay.
right now it is a cow pasture. So I got my daughter to come over to do that with me, because I went to Ireland by myself and spent 2 weeks alone over there traveling and staying in Trinity College, and that was tough. Even as an introvert, traveling alone is difficult. You know, there are challenges to it, and also I'm really sensitive to chemicals. And I was staying in Airbnbs that had a lot of Glade plugins,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Febreze. They're like, oh, we'll make the sheets all smell great for the guests. Well, meanwhile, I was having nervous
Breathing
system
problems.
issues, real big problems. And, you know, at one point got to, I one night woke up and my tongue felt swollen, and I was sort of on my knees at the screen window trying to get fresh air and thinking I'm going to have to call emergency. And I was by myself, and I was kind of freaking out. So the next day I got in the car and I went to Tara. Tara is the seat of the High Kings of Ireland historically, and it's a very magical place. And I went there, and there were prayer trees where people had taken ribbons and tied them on trees to pray. And all I had was like a lens cleaner in my purse, you know. So I tied this lens cleaner, and I'm like, you guys, because I'm very spiritual. I'm like, I really need some help here. I'm not okay, and I need some help. And when I left, I drove down the road, and I saw a motel called Tara's Motel, and my daughter's name is Tara as well. And the thought hit me: you don't have to stay at the B&B. Why don't you leave? Like that, you know. It's funny
Yeah.
when you're that sick, you can't think properly. So I went in and I said, you know, can you have you got a room? They said, oh yeah, and they showed me this room, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, it's a little bit. It still feels like musty to me. I don't know. And she said, well, have you been across the road to the B&B? Or you go over there, and she's got a lovely place. So I said, okay. So I went over to this B&B. Well, she was like my angel. She shows me upstairs. There's this gorgeous room upstairs. She says, and I've got all the special foods for you. You can stay here. You can come right away. And I did. And that saved me. So that was my trip in Ireland. But then I got my daughter, and so we got the car, and we drove down to Croghan Hill, and we had to make our way through the cows, which is a little bit scary because you never know with cows, you know.
Yeah.
They're curious. They put their heads down and they come over and they want to see you. I grew up with cows, so I'm pretty good, but you know. So anyways, I went up on the top of this hill, and you can see all the major hills of Ireland where, you know, they would light bonfires on the special Sabbaths. Like we're on one actually today, right? This is actually St. Bridget's Day today, and it's Emulk, and it's one of the Sabbath days. So they would light fires, and in the Iron Age, they would all travel to these different hills around Ireland to celebrate and have feasts and all these things. So I could see the whole of Ireland pretty much from there, which was pretty great. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you're very spiritual. So does that have to do with like the books that you've written? Are they based on spirituality?
They are. They're based on pagan spirituality. And so there is a lot of the mythology is in there. And the things that they actually do are things that I do myself, like working with a pendulum, working with tarot cards. And, you know, I've done my share of casting spells too. I'm not part of a coven. But I've certainly dabbled in all of those things. So yeah, it's part of it. And the meditation, like he does a lot of meditation where he brings himself down and he grounds himself, and through doing that, he has really made his gifts stronger. Yeah.
Well, and I think when you look deep within yourself, right, that's when the light comes out, right? It's like when you put the lens cleaner, you know, the lens of your eyes kind of open to see other opportunities of where to stay and look, you know. It's the little things that we sometimes oversee, you know, and we get those messages, and it's like, no, you need to be going this way, not going that way. It's like you said with the pendulum, right? Like how it directs and that. So for any of the viewers and listeners out there that want to know a little bit more about pagan, is there any good resources that they can check out?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think if there's any metaphysical stores nearby wherever you are, that's a good place to start. I mean, I've always, you know, there's so many different books out there now, and it depends what you resonate with. You know, some people are into angels, other people are into Wicca, other people are into fairies, and indigenous spirituality is another big thing. So I think it depends what you need in your moment, because I think those things change as well. You know.
Well, I noticed that in your bio, you have done some articles for Native rights, and that does that resonate with you? Are you part of the Native?
So when I was in my mid-30s, and I finished high school in my mid-30s. That's another piece about me, because I was a high school dropout. And
I am too.
yeah, and then I became a teacher, which was kind of fun. But yeah, in my mid-30s, I finished high school, and part of that was finding a Native Ancestry article. I was taking a course called Native Ancestry 11 in Ontario through correspondence at that point. And I so resonated with the idea, the concept of animism, which is the idea that everything is alive with spirit. Winds have spirit, trees, grass, everything. And when you're cutting down trees and all those things, you're affecting spirit, and you're affecting the world and that creature, that sentient being. So I really resonated with that, and I wanted to know more. So I ended up taking course by course a degree in Indigenous Studies through Trent University. And partway through that, well, first of all, before I got really into it, I had to get divorced because my ex-husband wasn't on board. so I went through as a single mom, and it took me a long time to do it because of that. But it was a definitely a heart thing that I had to do it. And partway through that, my mom came one day, and she said, well, she was 75, mind you. Okay. She said, well, I can see why you're into this stuff. My great grandfather married an Indian. And I said, what? So what? Like, why are we hearing this now? I'm 35. But yeah, she said she was Tuscarora and he was Dutch. And that was about all I ever got out of her. And so I've been researching that ever since, and have run into other people through ancestry.ca that said, yes, we do. We have this Native woman. Here she is. Here's a picture of her. They even sent me a picture of her. So that was really nice.
Oh.
Yeah. And that was my great grandfather's youngest brother's granddaughters. So I kind
Ancestry
of
is amazing.
Yeah.
I love history, and I've found all the way back to 1716 on my dad's side, and I'm just like, oh my goodness! Like, there's so many things that resonate, and the characters and the patterns that have come from generation to generation. It is amazing what Ancestry does.
Yes, it is. I know. I think it's a really good resource, and I've taken my dad's family back too, like way back, and I found actually one of his cousins who had gone to England and poured through all the parish records, and she had found out. And that's the great thing about Ancestry, is you can jump and piggyback on other people's work.
Yep.
And you'll never be able to do that on your own.
No.
So it's pretty amazing. Just check, make sure that they're right, because sometimes they're wrong.
Yeah, sometimes they add the wrong leaves, and then you're directed another way, and you're like, but that's not connecting this to these three that I already have, that I know and confirm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where do you get the researching from your mom or your dad?
Probably my dad. My dad was kind of a really deeply spiritual guy who was, really introverted too. Yeah, I think so. My mom was super funny and loved to armchair travel, and she really taught me about reading. She loved books and reading, and so I think I got a lot of that from her. Yeah.
When you said that you were a high school dropout and you became a teacher, so what message would you have for like the viewers out there? A lot of people, they drop out of school. I've dropped out of high school. I just could not do it, and
Yeah.
I'm missing half a credit to get my grade 12, and I've tried 4 times, and I'm just like, I can't do it. That math will not. I'm 4 points short of getting my diploma. It is frustrating.
No. Where are you? Where are you?
I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada.
Yeah.
So you should be able to do like workplace math or something and get it. I know in BC, because I'm a guidance counselor too now, right, in BC, that you can do, you just need 5 subjects, and one of them is workplace math, right?
Yeah,
and,
I've done the social studies, the English, the science, but my math was 4 points off. I've done it 4 times, and I'm just like, I'm not meant to have this paper. I don't think
that's not fair.
Yeah, I'm just like, can you guys just, like, you see me come 4 times. There's the 4 points. 4 efforts, but no,
They
it
that
hasn't happened. So I've put it in my mind that it wasn't meant to be. You know, I still can educate myself and still get that research and everything out there without the diploma. I'm just not meant to have that diploma. So, yeah. So,
wow.
what message would you have? Because you became a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my message is that for me, education. I think education is opens doors,
Yeah.
and I think it's a way to freedom. And for sure, I mean, I was with my ex-husband for 18 years, and I did all this bookkeeping. I could do all these things, but if I wanted to go and do something else like that involved higher learning, I had to have that. And so and actually it wasn't I didn't go into it wanting higher learning. I actually went into it because I was like, I really feel like I'm missing something, and I need to learn this stuff. And in those days where I was in Ontario, um, I didn't have to take math. Otherwise I would probably be like you, because I am not a math person at all. And I took creative writing, um, history 12. I remember taking history 12 and being completely blown away in my 30s, because I knew nothing about the world wars. I knew nothing about all these different isms in the world and how the world worked, and I was mind blown. So I
Yeah.
think that what education does is it offers us doorways to open and ways through that you might not previously consider, you know? What else did I took? I took English, 12, obviously, and two other things. I can't remember what they are right. Oh, the native ancestry course. And there would have been one more thing, but I can't remember what it was at this point.
Well, it's
But
just really inspiring, Wendy, that you went back at the age of 30 and became a
yeah,
teacher, you know? It,
yeah.
it just shows that there's no age limit to go and get something and start something fresh,
No,
right?
there isn't. I mean, I did the high school, and then when I was 35, I started university, and that took me a long time, like I said, because I was a single mother, and I was trying to get through all this. And then I came out to BC. I was already 40, and they said, well, I said I want to be a teacher, and they said, well, you can't with at that time you can't be a teacher with Native studies. It's not a thing. It's not a teachable subject. Now it might be. Um,
Wow.
but then it wasn't. So then I went back again and I took a complete year of English literature. And then I took some special education courses. And those things really served me. So the other piece for education for me is that way leads on to way. So having those education courses or the special education courses got me my first job, which was in a learning center in a resource room in a school, because they needed somebody I had some counseling background too, because I was also working at that point in Ontario as a sexual assault counselor in a
Okay.
transition house with
Yep.
domestic abuse. And so they wanted somebody who could do counseling, and I had some coursework in special ed. So I got a job, whereas other people weren't getting a job. And that bloomed into a full-time position in that school at a time when there weren't a lot of jobs. So that has really, really served me. Even later, I ended up becoming Aboriginal education coordinator in that district, because I had that Native studies. So it came back again, and I got to do that. So I think you just have to keep walking through the dark part of the forest. I really do. And, pushing the branches out of the way and finding your path, and
Well, it's
keep
almost
going.
like your series, right? It's taking you on a journey of
Yes.
4, and now we're going to 5. So, and do you have any? I can't think of the word. My tongue tonight. Uh, do you have any feelings of a book after number 5? Like, is number 5 going to be the last? Is there going to be 6? Is there going
Well,
to be 7?
there very well could be seven, because seven is such like an important spiritual number, you know.
Yeah.
And just actually, I was just saying to a friend of mine, because we were talking about travel, um, and I said, Estrada just dreamed about his abuela, who is his his grandmother, and she's Mayan, and she lives in Merida. And I had brought her up, in the beginning of the books, and he just had another dream about her, and he was saying, "I'm such a bad grandson. I haven't gone to see her all these years." And I said, I think I should go to Merida again, because I've been there once. Merida's in the Yucatan Peninsula, and
Okay.
it's a beautiful colonial city. And I went there 10 years ago, actually, this year, with a
Wow.
teaching friend, and it was really lovely. And I started writing a book called To Murder in Mexico, which follows my series, right? So I said, I almost feel like I need to go back to Merida next year and write that book. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't
You
know.
just never know, right? And
You never know.
number seven is really spiritual.
It
Uh,
is. It is.
and
Yeah.
I say 2023 is a very spiritual year because when you add the numbers, you get a seven. So there's
Oh,
going to be a
okay.
lot of sevens this year. There's going to be a lot of openings. I see a lot of things closing, but I also see a lot of things opening. Um, I
Hmm.
don't. I told my children. I said 2023 is going to be a very opening year for a lot of things.
Hmm.
So,
That will be interesting. I hope borders open, and we get more of a peaceful world, and people
yeah.
are connecting in better ways,
Mhm.
this year. But who knows? Who knows?
So, Wendy, you also mentioned tarot cards. So, do you do like personal readings, or do you do them for yourself, for your family?
Yeah, I've been doing the Mother Peace Tarot deck, which are, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're big round deck that were created about 30 years ago. And I've been using that deck for the last 30 years, I guess. And I can do them for other people. I definitely do them for myself. And they're really nice because they're very feminist, and they're also very tribal. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
And do
that's
you?
cool.
Do you?
No, I don't read the cards because I read stones.
Oh, okay.
I see visions in stones. So
That's
I
so
see
cool.
people and animals in stones. A lot of people will be like, "You see that dot?" And I'm like, "You mean the man in the stone?" And they're like, "Where's the man?" And then because I get them to see to look at the stone, they actually do see the man or the woman. I see a lot of animals, a lot of travel in stones. Yes. So when I get a crystal, I always like to see if there's a message in the crystal. That's how I
Oh,
find my crystals. If there's a message, if there's no message, because some stones are bare because
right.
they haven't been read yet or they haven't been opened yet. So I do a lot of stone reading. So
That is so cool. I just have to tell you that the book To Sleep with Stones, which is the second book, the character that one features, Dylan McBride, he can put his hand on a stone and see the visions of everything the stone has seen. So that's how he ends up in jail, because
oh,
yeah, because
and that's book number two, right?
that's book number two. So he is at Ballymenach Stones in Scotland, in Kilmartin Glen. He's on an archaeology dig, and he's out there with the standing stones, and he sleeps with them that night and sees this vision of this Egyptian princess, because they're digging up an Egyptian broad collar that's been left in Scotland. That's where this one's going. But while that's happening, a man who he's just had an altercation with at a pub gets murdered in a cairn right down the road from him, like right through the
Wow.
pasture from him. And so in the morning, the cops come and drag him out of this field and charge him with murder. And yeah, it's really heavy.
I'm gonna have to grab number two.
He's, he's he is, yes. And then when he's in the jail, because it's all, an old stone jail, he can pick up all the things that people are feeling when they're in the jail cell. And so yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna
Estrada
just.
goes to find out who actually killed this guy so he can get friend, because Dylan is quite an innocent guy, and he knows he's not going to last in prison. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Just amazing because I always thought that I was by myself when I was stone reading. I was like, is there anybody out there that can reach stones too. And some stones I'll pick up and I'll drop them right away because there's an energy with that stone that I don't even want to open. And my children will look at me and say, "Mom, why'd you drop that so fast?" I was like, just don't touch that one. Like, leave that one alone. You
That's
know?
wonderful. That's amazing. I would like to
Yeah.
have a reading like that. That's
Yeah, a
fantastic.
lot of people give me their crystals when they buy crystals, and I hold them, and then I'm like, "This crystal is not meant for me to touch. Like, I'm not supposed to hold it." So I ask you to cleanse it, because sometimes we
Mm,
put our energy on a stone or on a card that's not meant for us, and we're opening something else. And I'm very, very leery when it comes to opening gateways, and that. So
mhm.
it's really interesting that your book is and the number two, the angel wings. It's like my youngest, my oldest. I mean, well, she was my youngest, but my oldest, who passed away from stillborn, is my angel, my
Mm.
guardian angel, and
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
the wings, right? So it's
Mhm.
almost like she's speaking to me. So yeah,
Mm.
it's amazing how we resonate and connect, through our
Yes.
stories and through sharing and that. So I think it's a good time to ask you, Wendy, what is your tea tonight?
Yeah, I mean, what really came through for me was truth, engagement, and action. Hmm.
And I see that in you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Because our teas are like a time travel, right? And that's what your books are. They're like a time travel. So I see that, the truth of the time travel. And
I,
and I
s-
love time travel. And
I,
I'm always
yeah, I
like,
want
I
to
could
time
talk about
travel.
time travel for hours. I'm just like, if
I
you could go
know.
back in time, Wendy, would you
Mm.
change anything?
Oh, you're not supposed to change anything. I just learned
Exactly.
this whole thing through my
But
people,
some people
but
be like, I know I want to change this. I want to change the man I married. I want to change the way that and I'm like, if you change that, then all the rest changes.
well, yeah, if I changed the man I married, I wouldn't have my daughter, my son, and my incredible Augie the Red grandson, who is so fantastic. I mean, we're on our path, and all these things make us who we are, right? But I
Yeah.
sure would like to go back and visit my Aboriginal aunt, or my great great grandmother. I would love to meet her, and I'd love to go back and see some of these places. My father was an interesting guy. You were talking about where things come from. My dad was a seeker, and he was, when I was young, he was an Anglican lay minister. So I grew up in the Anglican church, and then he switched over to the Lutheran church, and did services there. And then when I was about 16, he was going through a really rough patch. I was partially responsible for that, I think, because I was that's when I was like quitting high school, and I was pretty much a wild child. Yeah. But and then and what happened is they sold their farm that they had been in, and that was his thing, right? I always remember him sitting outside on the bench of the barn, like sitting out there on the footstep of the barn. Anyway, he was going through a really rough patch, and I think he actually was suicidal. And my aunt, his aunt, brought him into the Rosicrucian church, because the Rosicrucian is like, they believe in reincarnation, and she's like, you can't do that, you need to come to this. And so he got really into Rosicrucianism, and started doing candle magic, if you can believe this. I mean, this is my dad a long time ago. He was doing candle magic like Yeats and all these guys. And so I have a tape. He went to a trance channeler, okay,
Oh,
when I was 16, and I have the tape. And he said, I don't get my youngest daughter. That's me. He's like, I can't connect with her. I don't know what's going on with her. I don't get it. And so the trance channeler takes him through all these lives where he, my mother, my sister, and I are all in the same family unit,
yeah.
but we're all different, in different relationships to him. And he was always like playing favorites with one and not the other. And he says, you did it again in this life, didn't you? I mean, it was really interesting. And yeah,
So
so
how do you feel about reincarnation?
absolutely, I'm there. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know if what I feel, because my past resonance is so strong with certain places and not at all with others. And I don't know if it's because I've lived them before, or if some of it's ancestral memory. I don't know. It's very strong in some places. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing that you brought up the ancestry memory, because we do through our reincarnations, right? We bring the ancestry through us.
Hmm.
And I'm like you, like I fear certain things, and I'm like, why am I so scared of that? Like heights. Why am I so scared of heights?
Yeah.
Fire. When I'm close to fire, at certain times I'm okay with it. Other times I'm like terrified. It's like as if I've been set on fire in my past life. And I say my last life is going to be a cricket. I can't stand the bloody things. Like they get on my nerves. and something just keeps telling me that's going to be your last life. You're going to be a cricket because you cannot just stand these crickets.
Okay, I have to tell you a quick little story because of the cricket thing. One of my memories, you have these little sporadic memories from childhood, but one of my memories is lying in bed and hearing this like cricket noise so loud, and like waking up and looking, and it was sitting right there,
Oh
and it
no.
was looking at me, and I was like, "Wah!" That moment, the spider
I
moment,
just think they're
cricket moment.
noisy. Like they're so
No,
loud.
it was like right there, and I don't know if it was like talking to me or what it was doing, but I was not there. But meanwhile, now that I live in this place, I heard the crickets in the summer, and I loved it because they were outside, mind you. They weren't sitting on me. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind if they're far away, like when I go camping or stuff like that. But I just find like when I sit in my backyard, because I have an apartment, and when I sat in the backyard, it was almost like those buggers were tormenting me. They were like really getting louder and louder and louder. And I was like, can I just please have my cup of tea without you guys going at it?
Do you know what
And
they're doing?
no.
Okay, so what they're doing is they're playing their arms. So it's like
Okay.
it's like they've got it's like an instrument, and they're playing like this is the sound, and they're doing it for two reasons. One is to stake their territory. They're singing to females, and they're
Oh.
telling the other males to get lost.
Oh. Well, now I might look at a cricket a little different.
Yeah, I think you should give them a chance because that's what they're trying to do. They're it's a courtship thing, and they're musicians. Yeah.
I never thought of that because birds do the same.
Mhm.
Where we hear birds getting louder and louder, that's their
Yeah.
mating calls.
Yeah.
Because I
Pick
in the back
me.
of my backyard's a graveyard, so like I always tell my friends, like my neighbors and that, like, and they're like, how are your neighbors? Oh, they're dead quiet, like not a sound, like, and everyone's like, what do you mean dead quiet? And I'm like, well, there's a cemetery, like I don't know what to tell you.
So, are you out there feeling the stones in the graveyard? I would be so doing that if I were you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And like
Yeah.
getting those stories from the people. Ooh, that's
Yeah. Well, it's like that feeling of touching a stone, right? When you touch a stone, there's an energy with that stone.
mhm.
So some stones in the graveyard, I'm like, oh, okay, no, this is not for me to touch. I'll respect you, and I'll move on. But I
Mhm.
always like to touch the younger ones that are in the cemetery, the
Mm.
children that have passed away from, smallpox and stuff like that, because they have the older stones, like the 1800 stones and the 1700s. Those are the stones that I like going to, because I find that
Yeah.
they have a story, like a big history story.
That's what I love about Eastern Ontario, like Eastern Canada, is that history that's there. I mean, I was raised in Pickering. My parents lived in Picton, which isn't too far from Cornwall, and they moved to Picton after they sold. But where I am now, it's all like BC is kind of the last thing to get developed. So everything's fairly new here, and I miss the historic buildings for
Yeah.
sure. And that's what I really love, that part of going to Ireland or Scotland or these places where you can be part of that history, right?
Well, it's amazing that you were born in Pickering. I was born in Hearst, so I'm like a northern girl. Like I come from northern Ontario, and then I moved down here, down east, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's the history that's behind all of these stones and that. And I think that's where your stories are, is the history, the storytelling, the time travel. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
in book 6 there might be some reincarnation.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to go on there, especially if it's in Mexico. Like, I don't know. I don't know what's going to
Oh my
happen. Or
goodness,
book
Mexico.
seven, book seven. Yeah, I don't know. Um, we'll see. I can't not write these books because I'm just so close to the characters, especially Estrada. Like he's real to me, and so I just I can't stop writing his story. I don't, I don't, as I said, I'm complex. I don't really have all that much of a social life. I'm pretty limited in a social life because I'm not really great about going out and doing things. But I think I want to. But then, when it comes right down to it, I just like really want to go home and,
Yeah.
you know. But I have a very large fictional group of people around me who talk to me all the time. So I'm never
Yeah.
alone. It's not like I'm alone. Yeah.
Well, we're
So
never really alone if
no.
we really pay attention, right?
Yeah.
So how many books do you have out there besides the series?
I have another one called Lure, um, which I just released last February. And it's a romantic suspense novel set in Minnesota, actually, on the Chippewa Reservation. And yeah, the funny thing about that story is I actually wrote the first draft of that novel while I was in that place of just leaving my husband 30 years ago and in Indigenous
Mhm.
studies. So it has a lot of kind of Native American spirituality involved in it. And it's a romance, but there's also a missing Indigenous girl in there. The character finds a skeletal hand in her shed, and so that character's story came through and told me what happened to her, and I wrote her story into it as well. So there's that one, and I have another one that I just sent to an editor yesterday that's
Oh,
finished. Yeah, called Ghostlight, and I want to shop that one, and it's about a young girl who goes back to a lighthouse where she grew up, and yeah, and because of some traumatic events that have happened, she lost her mother, but then she loses her father, and um, all this trauma releases her kind of innate mediumship, and so she can see spirits, and so she goes to this lighthouse, and the spirits don't want her there. So it's yeah. So she's unraveling her past and the truth about her mother and father at this lighthouse with all these spirits. So I'm excited about that. I don't know where that's going to go yet. And
so
yeah,
you just sent that one into editor, so that
I
should be
just
coming
sent
out
it.
this year or next
Well, I
year?
sent it to an editor and then I'm going to shop it. So once I get it back, I'm going to try and find a home for it. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But
So if anybody wanted to grab any of your books, Wendy, where can they find them?
I am on all the usual places. But also, it's best to go to my website. So that's bluehavenpress.com. And you can find everything on there. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and if anybody wanted to reach you, how could they reach you?
Same thing, bluehavenpress.com. And you can get in touch with me there. Yeah. Or you can email me, Wendy at bluehavenpress.com. Yeah.
So, is your favorite color blue?
Well, yes, it is. And as I said,
You
again,
kind of
it's
gave it away, the
complicated.
blue haven.
Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, the blue. I don't know if you can see the blue glass behind me because it's getting dark, but I'm so like, if I'm walking through the mall and I see that blue glass, I'm like, I just like go right. So in the winter, that cobalt blue really speaks to me, and in the summer, turquoise. And I really love turquoise. And I actually have some. I don't have my stones here, but I have a piece of turquoise I picked up in New Mexico that you would love. it has Cocopele, the dancing creature in it. And I picked it up for like $5. You know, in New Mexico, it's the size of my fist. And
Wow.
they have all these bins of turquoise. And I was rummaging around trying to find it. And I picked this up and I looked at it and I'm like, whoa, Cocopele. He's there. There's this guy. So I showed the trader and he's like, wow, that was in the bin. And I'm like, yes. And it's gorgeous, right? So, yeah.
I love that you have like a certain tone of blue,
Mhm.
because for me, it's the ocean blue. That's my favorite color.
Yes. Well, there's lots of different ocean blues too.
Yeah, it's a darker blue.
The
So
dark
kind of
one.
like in the stone here that I'm wearing. So the dark blue, I
Yeah.
find it's got the power and the strength in it. Where the lighter blue is the sky, so the sky and the water. So I'm really connected to the ground, like
Yeah.
the earth and that. So
Yeah.
so what energy are you connected to? The fire, stone, wind?
You know, I'm a Pisces, and so I'm pretty much a water baby. So I'd say, yeah, I think Pisces is probably my strongest, but I'm also really an earth person too. You know, I was out digging today. I don't know if you could do that in Cornwall today, but
No, we have a deep cold.
I thought
It's
so.
minus 28 right now. With the
Oh
wind chill, it's 43.
no.
So
Oh
we
no.
have a deep weather warning. It keeps popping up on my screen here, a deep
Oh.
freeze. So yeah, it is cold outside. It is not time to be digging in the ground.
I will tell you the reason I came to BC 25 years ago was because of the weather.
Oh,
It really,
really?
that was why, because, you know, I had seen the brochure on Vancouver and I was like, I want to go there. And then I had taken, I came out here in April one year to a friend who lives on the Sunshine Coast. And I was in my jean jacket riding a horse through the skunk cabbages. And it was gorgeous. And then I went back to get off at Pearson Airport, you know, and there was a blizzard. And I said, that's it, I'm done. And it took me a while to make it happen. But I'm really glad I did. And it's, yeah, I just have tried to make a home here. I mean, there's a part of me that will still always have my home be in Ontario because that's what I remember, you know,
Yeah.
when I grew up. Because I was, 42, I think, when I came here.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And so I don't resonate as much with this part of the world as I do with some places in Ontario. But this is where I am and I've made it home. And the weather is sometimes better, although honestly, we've been having some really crazy stuff going on out
Oh my
here.
goodness, yeah.
So
I don't know. This time of year last year, we were like the grass was sort of showing. Now we've got big snow
Yeah.
banks. It's crazy. The weather is just crazy.
it is crazy. It really
Yeah.
is. But today, anyways, I was out in the earth and I was really digging it because I was digging. I was, you know, I had my trowels and I had the grandson out there and he had the tools and, you know, we were digging in the dirt and it felt really good to be doing that too. And yeah,
Well, grounding's good for you, right?
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
So, any final words before we wrap up your tea time tonight?
I just want to say how much I enjoyed chatting with you. And I think
Oh,
we
well,
should
thank you.
chat some more because we have a lot of
Absolutely.
things that we could, you know, I want to show you some of my stones and, you know, yeah.
Yeah.
So I really
Yeah,
thank
for
you. I
sure.
really
Let's stay
appreciate
connected
it.
and let's do some stone reading. And for sure, I'm going to grab that number 2 because that is really resonating with me right now. I'm just like, I want to read that story of the stone reader. So,
He can communicate them with them so much that he can actually get them to move when they need the stones to move. Yeah.
oh,
The rocks will move for him. Yeah.
yes. See,
Yeah.
that gets my attention. So, for all the listeners and viewers out there, yes, Miss Liz is a little weird, and yes, I do get into, but I really feel connected when I'm with the stones. I feel at home. So I don't know if there's some stone builders in my past, like maybe on my mom's side. On my dad's side, there's none, but maybe on my mom's side there is. So there's
Have you gone to see the megaliths in Europe?
no.
You really need to do that.
Yeah, I do.
You do. You really do. You know Outlander? I mean, Diana Gabaldon.
Yes, I watched that.
Okay, so you know those are the stones I'm talking about, and you'll be driving down the highway, and they're just in the field. You get out of the car and you wander in the field, and there are the stones, and you can you can be with them, and touched a lot of stones in Ireland, Scotland, and Orkney. Orkney has beautiful stone circles as well, and stone forts, and you definitely need to do that. Put it on your bucket list.
Well, for sure. And I want to thank you, Wendy, for having a tea time with me and sharing your tea tonight, because it really makes a big difference when we start sharing and pouring teas that are from within us, like we did with the books and the stones and our stories. We have a lot that resonates and connects. I want to thank the viewers and listeners that tuned in tonight with your questions and all of that, your pop-ins to show your support. I want to thank you for that as well. And I want to thank you, Wendy, for taking the time to sit and share. Sometimes we don't share enough. And I think tonight was a night of sharing. So let's stay connected. Don't leave. I'm just going to close up the live, and we're going to maybe talk for a little bit more about more stones in the back of the studio. So again, check out next Thursday when I bring in 3 more incredible guests. So check out the topics. There are different topics for everyone. So if one tea does not resonate with you, the next one will. I promise you. So, and check out Miss Liz's YouTube. There are over 180 different tea times on there. Incredible books, incredible authors like Wendy. So thank you again, Wendy. So I will see you in about 2 minutes. I'm just going to wrap up. And I will see everybody next Thursday, 10 a.m. for the first one, 3 p.m. second, and 7 p.m. the third. Guys, all a good night.